Well, good morning, one and all. How the devil are you doing this fine day? If you're an England fan, I'm not going to dwell on it, but good morning, one and all. I am going to dwell on it very, very quickly while people are still arriving. It's the best greeting I've ever seen, I think. Chris Ford says, morning, sweaty betties. May your drop balls swing free. Indeed. Dan Cohen saying, good morning, guys. Good morning, Dan, as well. Yeah, very quickly on the football. I realise a lot of the people that watch this aren't necessarily football fans. The longer I watched last night, okay, let me wind back. As an England fan, I'm disappointed that we're out. As a football fan, not so much. The longer it went on, the more I was sat there thinking, if these guys do actually go ahead and win and then make it to the final and somehow beat Spain, they will be the world champions. And I'm not sure they are deserving. The team that won the World Cup in 1966, Bobby Moore, Geoff Hurst, Martin Peters, Jack Charlton, Bobby Charlton, Roger Hunt, Nobby Stiles, Gordon Banks, and all of the others live on in honour and in fame. Now, that may be because they won the World Cup and they are the only team to have done, or the only English team to have done so, or the only English male team to have done so. But the thought of revering petulant, overpaid, rolling around on the floor stars of today really, really sat poorly with me last night. As I say, losing to the old enemy, not what I wanted, but by the same token, I'm not entirely sure I could bring myself to revere Harry Kane the way that I still revere Bobby Moore. Not sure I could have done it. Anywho, let's get on over to here. Dan Cullen saying, top of the morning, you hairy ass plant operators. Mark writing, a little more subtle, just says morning all. And Dan says, I couldn't stop laughing. No more, it's coming home. Well, not for another 2 years. When the Euros roll around, it'll all begin again. And then 2 years after that, be the World Cup and it'll all be coming home again. I saw 5 minutes was awful. I stopped watching it. Yeah, that's the other point. That is the other point. Yes, we did go 1-0 up, but by and large, the football was pretty poor. And to be honest, the game only burst into life when Argentina decided, enough of this nonsense. We need to win this game. And then it started to get interesting. There you are. Morning, peeps, says Jim Turner. Good morning, Jim. Now, I don't really know what I'm going to do with what I'm about to tell you, but I'll tell you it nonetheless. Good morning, guys. Don't worry, England. There's a spare place on the plane home. Good. Thank you, Gary. And don't relish it too much, my friend. Right. I had a conversation earlier this week. And as I say, I really don't know where to go with this. I mean, I know where I'm supposed to go, and I probably will. But so I highlighted the fact that it's been 10 and a bit years since Didcot on Facebook the other day, and we're closing in on 300,000 views on that, which means it's gone to people that, some people were previously unaware of Didcot, some people were aware of Didcot but had kind of lost interest or had moved on or whatever. And it was one of the latter that phoned me yesterday. He phoned me to say that he'd been at Didcot the day after, literally the morning after. So I was outside. I was at the top of the road, allowed to go no further. I was kicking around with the folks at Sky TV. He was actually in the site at the behest of Oxford Council. As a demolition expert, he'd been called in. Can you come along? We need help. We're probably going to need a big crane. Do you know where we can get a crane? And he advised, and the crane duly arrived, even though it was never actually used. But here's the point. The guy that contacted me, as I say, was on site pretty much the entire day. And not only was he there, he filmed it. He filmed the aftermath. Now, a couple of years after the whole thing blew up, I was contacted by Thames Valley Police because they'd got wind of the fact that I'd been to Didcot a couple of times and I had filmed it. This is long, 6 months probably before the incident on the 23rd of February 2016. But they asked me, they didn't demand, but they're very polite, but they asked me if I would be willing to share the footage that I had, which I did. No problem at all. It didn't show anything that would be of any interest. But this guy was there the day after, walking among the rubble, looking at the damage, still aware that there were people under the rubble and could potentially still be alive. Highly unlikely, but could potentially still be alive. And he filmed it. Here's the kicker. He has never, ever spoken to Thames Valley Police. Now, you might argue maybe he should have reached out, but a 10 and a bit year investigation has overlooked a potentially important piece of evidence, and evidence that was no secret. As I say, he was invited there by the council. He didn't creep in under the cover of darkness and surreptitiously film things. He was there at the behest of the council, and he's never spoken to the police. Now, as there's every possibility that all he's filmed is a bunch of rubble that will tell nobody anything at all, and therefore, no. But someone surely, in 10 and a bit years, someone surely should have asked the question. Gary Muirhead says, wasn't it Dr. Terry that refused to help with the investigation because, in his opinion, the people involved weren't competent enough to handle it? It was Dr. Terry Quornby. It was indeed. Been thinking about this, and I wonder if not just the demolition industry, but maybe the construction industry as well. When there's a case of police corruption, for example, it's generally not the police that investigate themselves. So if they find corruption in Yorkshire Police, for example, then maybe the Metropolitan Police from London will be sent up to investigate alleged corruption, and they will present their findings. I wonder, bearing in mind the global brotherhood of demolition, I wonder if, rather than entrusting that investigation entirely to the police, whether someone, the police, the UK demolition industry, the NFDC, the IDE, somebody should have reached out to maybe the National Demolition Association in America, or the European Demolition Association in Europe, or someone to say, we've had this, we need independent eyes to analyse this. It's far too late now. But I wonder, and be a contra agreement. So, if for example, the Americans helped to investigate Didcot, then maybe the Brits could help to investigate one of their incidents or accidents or fatalities. I wonder if we're missing a trick there. I do wonder. Dan can't say, wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. We were chatting away, me and this fella, and he said, I was there, and, I organised a crane, and I remember so-and-so arriving, and then this happened, and everything else. And I said, I take it you told the police all this? He said, no, I've never spoken to them. They've never been in touch. I said, but you were there at the request and at the behest of the council. The council surely are communicating with the police. Therefore, your name would have come up. He said, never heard from them. So for all that the police say about the thousands of bits of evidence and everything else that they hold, I'm not suggesting for one moment it's a smoking gun. I in my wildest dreams, I don't expect it to be that. But if you want to hold a thorough investigation, surely you should be covering all the bases. Ken Hatter has just arrived. Thank you very much indeed for being here, Ken. Dan says, I wonder the same thing. As they're taking the piss now far too long. Yeah, indeed. Jim Turner says, the plods don't give a shite. They'll just kick it about and hope the interest disappears. So keep sticking to them up. Well, I intend to. I mean, I guess the onus is now on me to reach out to the Thames Valley Police, although I don't suppose I'm the world's most popular person among Thames Valley Police, but to alert them to the fact that there is some potentially vital information that they've overlooked. I guess that's the way we go forward. And just going back, and I know I mentioned this earlier in the week, but because of that, the widespread views on that Facebook piece that I did, I was also contacted by one of the guys that was at Didcot on the day that it happened to tell me that another one of the guys that was there is basically weeks to live. He had lung cancer. The cancer is now spread to his brain. He is on borrowed time, and this guy wants me to try and do something about that, which I'm planning to do, and I will do that. But 10 and a bit years, and this guy will never see justice or closure. He will be dead before it all resolves itself. And I can't help but wonder if that was always part of the plan. Almost like sort of starving out a besieged city. If we hold off and hold off and hold off, people will have forgotten, people will have died, people will have moved on, and then we'll just let it meander away. Hang on a minute, let's have a look. I'm sure it was Wayne Bagnall that said the casualty of an accident is the truth. I tell you what, Gary, I don't know if you're taking notes, but you're absolutely spot on, not just with the quote, but with the person that said it. It was Wayne Bagnall that said that. Dan says, so who could they blame for that? The council, the police, for not asking the questions? I mean, bearing in mind, I mean, they are talking about, I wish I had the numbers in front of me. I probably should have done this before I thought about talking about it. But they are talking about, thousands of pieces of information and hundreds of police statements. I spoke to them, whether they recorded it or not. Not that I could shed a great deal of light on it, because I was there months before it happened. So they've spoken to me. I know a whole bunch of other people they've spoken to. They've tracked people down to overseas locations as well. But here's somebody that surely should have been on a register or something to say, this guy was here on that day. What did you see? Oh, not what I saw. I've got a video here. Do you want to see that? Nothing. Dandy Dovell says, morning, everyone. I've got to pull a tipper out that's got stuck, but the driver doesn't know how to open the bonnet to screw in the towing eye. Fucking brilliant. Yes. Happy Thursday. Surely that should have been part of the familiarization on training for the new truck. You'd have thought, wouldn't you? Unfortunately, it should have been photographed and examined in the first week it happened. Too late now, unfortunately, really. Yeah. And again, going back on that, the guy that I was speaking to said that while he was there, that they were running lasers over it. There was drones in the air. So all of that was being captured. But here is the point that troubles me. The drones and the lasers and the photography that was being done were likely being done probably by Thames Valley Police or possibly by the Health and Safety Executive, possibly by both. I'm not sure, particularly given this was like 12 hours after it happened, I'm not sure that they would know what to film and what to photograph in order to establish the cause of that catastrophic collapse. Whereas the guy that I was speaking to, a demolition man, I mean, I'm not saying he's necessarily right, but he spent about 20 minutes yesterday afternoon, telling me precisely what he saw and what he believes brought the building down. And he's not been contacted. Jim Turner says, take it to the local MP, and if they won't do anything, take it to the MPs of opposition parties and get them to help put the pressure on. It's a good point. It is a good point. Again, I'm not... See, this is one of the drawbacks of being outspoken. See, I've burned many bridges in terms of Didcot, local council, MPs, the police, MPs that aren't even related to this, but I I fully intend to follow this one through. Oh my God, Andy, that's unbelievable. Some trucks, Andy, and you don't need to open the bonnet. Yeah, it's but Stefan Edwards has just joined us. Morning, Stefan. How are you doing, my friend? Thank you for being here. Got a packed show for you today. And the morning monologue today, I was toying with the idea of saving this till tomorrow, but I'm feeling kind of rabble-rousing today, partly because of this whole Didcot thing, but partly because that's just my nature. So I'm going to do it today. I promised it yesterday, and I'm going to do it today. So without further ado, let me roll the intro and get this show on the road. It is Thursday, the 16th of July, which means tomorrow is my wife's birthday, and which means Saturday is my eldest daughter's birthday. So I'm getting in early. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Welcome to the, neither of them are watching. I don't know why I'm bothering. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, Fortescue Mining gets ready for its XCMG truck invasion. I kind of hinted at this yesterday. They've now got a film out, so I'll be bringing that to you in just a moment. How Yanmar is battling exhaust emissions. We're getting up close with the ECR50 from Volvo. We did the ECR40 yesterday. We're doing the 50 today. And Case won't back down. And speaking of not backing down, today's episode of Mark's Morning Monologue is called The Silent Majority. And you, my friends, you out in the watching world, you are that silent majority. So stick around if you possibly can. Got a lot to say on that subject. So before we get into all the meat and the bone of all of this, let's have a bit of cat, and then we're going down under. So yes, I hinted at this yesterday. Back in Mine Expo, not last year, year before, when I was in Vegas, there was a big unveiling of the T264 autonomous all-electric mining truck from Liebherr. And 300 of them have been ordered by Fortescue Mining to go and serve in their various mines around Australia. You'd have thought 300 trucks would be enough. Apparently not. And in this instance, not only are they getting more trucks, they're changing brands as well. They're going XCMG. Have a look.
All right, first drive, guys. 150 ton battery electric water tanker here in Suzhou in China. And I can't wait to test this thing. Let's go. What can I say? Already it's pretty bloody smooth. This is cool.
Quite a big fuck.
Yeah, mate. The first of many that we're going to be taking delivery of very soon. It's in its very, very final stages of testing. This is a production model that we'll be sending to the Pilbara very soon.
Here we are in our new ultra-class wheel loader.
All those deniers out there, I can vouch for the fact that these things do exist and they're performing well. We can't wait to get them up into the Pilbara. Alongside, those are the trucks, the water cart and the grader. Watch this space tank. It's coming.
I dread to think how much money Fortescue Mining are spending in equipment, but imagine how much they're spending in fuel. Beggars belief, it really does. Speaking of kind of fuel, but also emissions, we're going to be back in a moment with Yanmar and how they're tackling exhaust emissions. Before I press the button for the next bit, that's the end of Cat, says Ken Hatcher. I don't believe that's the case, but I would imagine, I wouldn't even go so far as to say Caterpillar are worried, but I would imagine that every once in a while they do have a quick look over their shoulder. I would imagine they do that. Back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
A bit more in the chat here. Chris Ford said, he said it all. Final stage of testing. Hope they do a video about them in 12 months. So do I. I'd say price would be part of it. I wonder about reliability. Listen, bearing in mind they're involved in the testing phase and the fact that they are going to be spending literally, I know with Liebherr, it was in the billions. They were actually spending billions of dollars. I can't imagine a company like Fortescue Mining jumping in feet first without some assurance on reliability and backup and everything else. But it'd be interesting to see just how they all pan out. Not been going for that long, Fortescue Mining. Fourth biggest miner in the world. Yeah, absolutely. And really, really have caught the environmental sustainability bug. I did actually meet the guy, the main man, I wish I could remember his name, the chief exec there at Mine Expo. And he was basically saying, the reason they've gone electric, the reason they've gone autonomous is just this passionate belief in, yes, we want what the earth contains. We want to extract that out to be able to, fuel and power and impact the world, but we don't want to impact the world ourselves. So yeah, interesting times. Anyway, Yanmar. Let's have a bit of Yanmar, shall we? And how they are tackling exhaust emissions using a bit of dynamometer technology. Here we go.
Yanmar invested heavily into a dynamometer system that allows us to do fine-tuning of after-treatment systems, emission systems. We have our 2050 Green Challenge, and part of that is being a leader in emissions capability, emissions output, which means that we're going to balance the carbon we produce, whether it be our engines or equipment, with the carbon we save.
The dynamometer allows us to operate engines under real-world conditions to evaluate their performance and emissions, like you would see in actual applications in the field. Things like tractors, pumps, sweepers, and even things like trailer refrigeration units that are produced by Thermo King. So my team is working on the next generation of our emissions control systems, things like the DPF and the SCR. In addition, we're supporting onboard diagnostic development for future regulation requirements.
Thermo King makes transport refrigeration units. These units are installed on trailers and box trucks and maintain temperature control for perishable goods during transportation. It can be anywhere from somebody that has to keep flowers at a certain temperature for delivery, to groceries at your local grocery store. Even pharmaceutical companies need to keep that medicine at a proper temperature so it doesn't spoil when it gets to the hospital.
So things really started happening here in 2018 when Yanmar decided to initiate localized research and development to help to support the North American market. This really helps us build expertise within North America so we can react quicker to our customers' needs and solve challenges specific to our market.
When Thermo King introduces a new technology, it's really important that we conduct performance and emissions testing. By doing this locally in the US, it ensures that we not only meet or exceed regulations, but it also provides opportunities to accelerate the development. The key performance factors we look for are really based off our customers' expectations. They expect something that's fuel efficient and is noise and emissions compliant across multiple locations that reduces the overall operating expenses of their fleets.
We're committed to not only being a leader in emissions, we're committed to being a leader in North America or in America in general. Our new dynamometer shows that we are here to stay. We're here to help OEMs. We're here to help our customer in the market to grow, to expand, and to reduce their burden to meet these emission standards.
The new dyno is the next piece of the puzzle in our localized research and development that allows us to support Yanmar's Green Challenge 2050.
We're trying to reduce carbon footprint from our products and deliver a solution that reduces our environmental impact. It's nice to know that Yanmar also has a similar sustainability goal. This ensures that as we move forward together that we're aligned on the direction we're headed. Yanmar and Thermo King are both committed to delivering solutions that minimize environmental impact.
These types of facilities show our commitment to the future, shows our partners, our customers, it shows people internally that we're committed to be a reliable partner, that we're going to be a technology leader, all in the effort of looking towards full sustainability, a zero carbon footprint, not only for us, but helping our OEM customers get to the same place.
A sustainable future. Yanmar.
I love the ending. A sustainable future. Right. Obviously, Yanmar best known for mini excavators, and we'll be sticking with mini excavators in just a moment after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, yesterday I introduced you to the Volvo ECR50. Well, I'm just about to introduce you to its bigger brother, the ECR50. Here we go.
Today we will be taking a closer look at the ECR50. The ECR50 has a maximum dig depth of 12 feet and 4 inches, 42 horsepower, and weighs about 11,700 pounds. This model is equipped with a 9-foot boom with offset cylinder below the cab. We have long life steel bushings that allow us to have 50-hour greasing intervals. This machine has an additional long arm at 5 foot 11 inches. This machine can have a standard float blade or angle blade. This unit is also equipped with a Volvo hydraulic quick coupler. This OEM coupler can be operated from inside the cab, allowing the operator to switch buckets or turn the bucket 180 degrees. A manual coupler is also available. At Volvo, we recognize the importance of safety, quality, and comfort. This cab is equipped with ROPS, Level 1 FOPS, and TOPS certification. We have an orange grab bar independently bolted to the side, where it would be easily replaced if damaged. Our large cab entry is just under 20 inches, making it one of the largest in the industry. Additionally, the Volvo will also have an orange footstep that will provide you with better traction when getting in and out of the cab. Below the entry, we have a lockable toolbox, making for a perfect storage solution for chains, grease guns, or any other tools. Taking a look at the back of the machine, we are going to have the exclusive to Volvo hydraulic filter. This additional filter allows the hydraulic motors and hydraulic attachments oil to be pre-filtered before going into the main hydraulic system. Additionally, in the back you will have the main control valve plus the fuel fill. This allows us to inspect the control valve for any potential leaks every time you refuel the machine. Additionally, the hood acts as a protective cover when refueling and is lockable with the same key as the rest of the machine. As we move to the engine compartment, to save time, we have easy access to most maintenance items. This includes the starter, the belts, and the coolers. Taking a look inside the cab, the first thing you will notice is all the available room. The Volvo is going to provide a comfortable, safe environment that any operator would love to work within. The Volvo is going to have full-size metal travel controls, making operating a breeze and taking away from any potential wear points. As you can see, the controls are going to move with the seat. The armrests are adjustable as well, again providing that comfortable experience for the operator. The top window has an integrated storage area for the lower window, allowing for a smooth motion to raise both windows. Inside the cab, you will find a robust heating and cooling system with vents behind the seats, providing the operator with the utmost comfort. While in the cab, you will see the control lever that will operate the float blade. When creating a level surface at a job site, a float blade will handle the task with ease. A button will activate the float feature, leaving you full control to turn on or turn off with the ergonomic lever. The red button on top will control your high and low travel speed. Taking a look at the display, you will see just how customizable your operations can be. Operated by a jog wheel, there are numerous functions you can control inside the display. These functions include pattern control change, auxiliary hydraulics, flows, and if single or dual directions, allowing for multiple saved profiles. If you are interested or have any questions on what you heard today, please reach out to your local Volvo dealer. They would be more than happy to help.
As Dan said, nice looking little machine. Indeed it is. He also asked, why do they say pounds instead of kilograms? Because the Americans are, in the last century, they're still on imperial. I don't know. And when one of them says, oh, it's a 40,000 pound excavator, what does that mean? It means nothing to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Volvo, but you haven't told me anything new or to set you apart from your competitors, says Chris Ford. But Chris also says this. He came to my rescue a bit here. Fortescue have some great named people: Dino Otranto, Agustin Pinchot, and Dr. Andrew Forrest. And Dr. Andrew Forrest was the guy that I met and that I spoke to at Mon Expo. So thank you for clarifying that, Chris. That's much appreciated. And Dan says, how come other brands don't do that with the windows to slide bottom one, windows to slide the bottom one up to the main window? Not entirely sure. Not entirely sure. I may need to rewatch that video. I was playing on my phone while that was going on. I shouldn't admit that, but I was. I've watched it before. I don't need to watch it again. Here we go. Our final film of the day comes from Case. It's a bit marketing, it's a bit advertising and everything else, but there is a message at the end of this that says, Case, don't back down. I'd like you to kind of cling on to that basic message, because that kind of, the reason I'm playing it as the last film is because that don't back down thing is very much the tone of the morning monologue today. So here's Case before we get into that monologue. Don't back down. Hold on to that thought. Had this from Chris Ford, who says, playing with your phone, no different to 90% of everyone else. No, indeed. I mean, in my defense, well, not that I need to defend it, but in my defense, I was just basically answering a text message. I wasn't scrolling through Instagram or anything like that. I was literally answering a text. But yes. But my eldest son doesn't live with us anymore, but he came home last night to watch the football. So there were, let me think, there was me, my wife, two sons, all watching the football. And all of us had our phones in our hand. I think that says a lot about the football, but I think it also says a lot about the modern society as well. 4 family members all doing something completely different other than conversing with each other. Sorry, state of affairs. Anyway, people, that's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll my outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into the morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back immediately after the thing I'm about to play. I'm hoping this resonates, and I'm hoping that you will take the time to share it with some of your colleagues, because it's kind of aimed at you guys. So let me play the thing and then I'll do the thing. You don't need me to tell you what you do. You don't need some soft-handed writer telling you that you're shaping the skyline or building the future. That's just some romanticised bullshit written by people who have never felt their fingers go numb while operating a hand tool, never felt freezing rain seeping into their clothes and into their bones, or wiped concrete dust out of their eyes at the end of a shift. You know exactly what you do. You tear down the old and you build the new. You do the heavy, dangerous, exhausting work that keeps this country moving. You do the work that others can't or won't. Yet when the project is finished, the awards are handed out and the self-congratulation begins, your names are nowhere to be seen. You are the invisible 99%. You are the silent majority of the demolition construction world. It's about time we started talking about the reality of your lives. For years, the bosses at the top have had one single solitary focus: how to get more out of you while giving you less in return. The industry has turned into a race to the bottom. Tender prices are slashed to the bone to win contracts, and who pays the price for that? It's not the developers sitting in warm, dry offices sipping expensive coffee. It's not the company owners who have long since quit visiting filthy sites in the arse end of nowhere. And it's not the managers who monitor productivity, progress and performance from afar. It's the men and women on the ground. Everyone else is far removed from the realities of the site. They don't see the 12-hour shifts that stretch into 13 or 14 when you factor in the commute. They don't see the cheap, damp B&Bs or cramped caravans miles away from your partners and your kids. They have no notion of what it's like to be hired through agencies on contracts that aren't worth the paper they're printed on, knowing you could be handed your cards on Friday afternoon with absolutely no recourse. We've allowed a system to take root where the people who do the actual physical work are treated as completely disposable. You're picked up when there's a deadline to meet, work to the absolute limit of your endurance, and then cast aside the second the budget pinches. They treat you like a hired generator. They turn you on, run you until you're out of fuel, and then replace you when you break. Let's be completely honest about what this industry asks of you. It doesn't just ask for your time, it demands your soul, your physical and mental health, and in many cases, your life. Every person who has spent a decade on site knows the toll. It's the permanent ringing in your ears, the dust that stays in your lungs no matter how many times you cough, and the joints that throb when the weather turns. You sacrifice your physical well-being so that a corporate logo can be bolted onto the side of a completed building, so that some faceless shareholders get their annual dividend, so that directors can quaff cocktails in Barbados for a month. And worse still is the mental toll, the isolation of working away from home, the constant pressure to hit impossible deadlines, and the quiet, nagging dread of wondering where the next job is coming from when this one wraps up. And you carry all that weight on your shoulders, usually in silence, because the culture of the site tells you to just get on with it. We've all seen good people break under that pressure. We've all seen mates pack up their tools and walk away, or worse still, suffer in silence until it's too late. That's the real cost of the more for less culture. It's a debt paid in human lives and broken homes. And the people running these projects are more than happy to let you foot the bill. They want you to feel isolated. They want you to believe that you're just an individual worker fighting for your own corner, because a divided workforce is an obedient workforce. If you're constantly worried about your own job security, you're far less likely to stand up and say, no, this is not good enough. The people who run these sites, the major contractors and the developers, are nothing without you. They have the drawings, the permits and the bank loans, but they don't possess the skill, the muscle, or the courage to do what you do. Every single brick, every single steel beam, every cubic metre of cleared ground is a direct result of your labour. If the silent majority decided tomorrow that the terms had to change, the entire industry would grind to a halt within 24 hours. That's the leverage you hold, but it only works if you realise you're not alone. You have to stop accepting the crumbs. You have to stop accepting the idea that long hours, terrible conditions, and zero job security are just part of the job. They're not, or they shouldn't be. They're the result of a system that has prioritised profit over people. It's surely time for the men and women it's surely time for the men and women of this industry to come together, to look out for one another, and to demand the respect that you've earned 1,000 times over. If a mate is being treated unfairly or pushed into an unsafe situation to meet a target, don't look the other way. Speak up. An injury to one is an injury to all. You need to demand proper contracts, fair pay that reflects the physical toll of the work, and realistic schedules that don't require you to ruin your health. Stop letting them tell you that you're just a number on a spreadsheet, an expendable commodity that can be replaced in an instant. You're the backbone of this nation's infrastructure, and it's high time you were treated as such. So the next time you stand on site in the freezing cold, looking at a massive project, remember this. The people who drew it, the people who financed it, can't build it. Only you can. You are the silent majority. It's time to make some noise. Please share this with a person working next to you today. Let them know they're not standing alone. There you are. I did think about saving that until Friday, but decided against it. Sorry, just had an email. Okay, yeah, no, don't need to worry about it. Yeah, there you are. That's my my rallying cry to the silent majority. Let's have a look. Chris Ford says, "You mean to say that you weren't texting each other? It happens in our house. They're only 6 feet apart. We weren't texting each other, but I will say that we did share the occasional meme between us. We have a family WhatsApp group, which was originally designed for secret Santas and stuff like that. It's now used, here's a dog falling over or whatever it might be. Okay, Dan, going back to the Volvo, that's not what I'm saying. The little bottom window should slide up to the main window. Okay, I'm with you now. That makes sense. You've only got leverage if you can afford to say no. True. But what I would say is, if the industry, I mean, I'm saying the industry, 2.5, 3 million people getting their heads together and doing this. But imagine a single contractor and the entire workforce just went, nope, enough. Not doing it, not having it. What are they going to do? Yes, they could reach out to an agency. Yes, they might be able to replace you. There's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be a cost. And if one contractor becomes 2, becomes 10, becomes 20, but what is the alternative at this point? When you've got people dying from accidents, being injured by accidents, suffering with their mental health, families being divided by people working away from home, and financial instability, job instability. Surely, sooner or later, somebody needs to stand up and say, that's it. We've taken enough and we will not take any more. Dan says, now that does resonate with us all, but here is the issue. As you said, we are replaceable, and unfortunately, no one has your back in this industry. And that, I think, is where you need kind of a groundswell for this sort of thing. I don't think this is not I'm not going to stand up as, workers' rights. I'm not going to be the person to lead the charge. I'm too far removed. I'm a journalist at the end of the day. I'm too far removed. I don't think it's in the best interest of anyone in management, middle management, director level within the industry to affect this change. The change needs to come from the bottom up. It needs workers to get together. And think about this. And I do wonder how aware the employers are of this. Let's use Dan as an example. I've lost count, but Dan through his WhatsApp groups, I'm going to take a wild guess. He's probably got the details of 10,000 people. If Dan were to stand up as, Wolfie Smith, the people shall rise, power to the people and all that, and he could get that 10,000 people to say, no, Dan, you're right. On that day or on that morning, I will stand with you, my friend, and we will down tools and we will demand better. 10,000 is enough to get somebody's attention. And Dan ain't alone here. There are groups online, forums, groups, operators groups, operative groups, all of those things. If you could get one or two of those together to say, enough. And maybe it needs to come off the back of something. Maybe it's, I don't know, a change in legislation. Maybe it's another fatality and the industry just says, that's it. That right there, that is the line in the sand. You just put the final straw on the back of the camel and the camel broke. We've gone far enough. We will go no further. And we have seen it. HS2 and Hinckley, but both major sites, we've had instances where the workforce have gone, hang on a minute, hang on. What are they going to do? Replace all of you? And how long is that going to take? Can these major projects really afford a week or 2 weeks to replace you? And then maybe another week, maybe another 2 weeks to get the new replacements up to speed? They can't. They are all the time a project is running, they are hemorrhaging cash. They need to get it completed in order to get paid. And they don't get paid if it don't get complete. I do think I got in a lot of trouble maybe 10 years ago when I referred to industry apartheid. Didn't sit well with some people. But that's what we've got. If I'll use the demolition industry or demolition sector as the example because I know the facts and figures best. There's somewhere between 550 and 600 demolition companies in the UK. So there are 550, 600 chief executives, managing directors, financial directors. But there are 30-odd thousand demolition workers. You have them outgunned, outweighed in every possible metric. And then you carry that over to construction. 3 million people are employed in the UK construction industry. Even if there are 50,000 MDs, you outweigh them and you outgun them, you outmatch them in every single way. And yet, and I will say again, it goes back to that whole notion of South African apartheid. A little group of white people telling all the black people what to do. And sooner or later, something had to give. Ours is not a matter of colour. Ours is a matter of status. But the facts are the same. There's a tiny, tiny group telling a massive, massive group what to do. Something's got to give. The next man will take your place and don't care. That, I think, is one of those things that the industry needs to get over. This notion that the guy beside you will replace you. And yes, as it stands at the moment, he may. But I think what they're losing in that conversation, what they're losing in that mindset, is that if they can replace you, someone else can replace them. And then someone can replace them, and so it goes on. But the moment that you actually overcome that and say, neither me, nor this guy, nor the one that side and the one that side, we're not going to put up with this. Then what are they going to do? Dan also says, if we all picketed at the gates, they would notice, but you have Johnny Two Shoes there. I can't do that. Need my money for my weekend parties. And Charlie. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. And listen, but when I think back, I was involved in a few strikes and industrial disputes back when I was a member of the National Union of Journalists. I lived through the miners' strikes in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So I'm well aware of that, and I'm sure that even when Arthur Scargill was standing and pontificating and insisting that all the miners came out and support, I'm sure there were many that said, "Well, stop that for a game of soldiers. I need my money." Not necessarily for Charlie, but I need my money. I need to feed my family, keep a roof over my head. I'm sure there were people that abstained and that decided not to join in the strike. But enough did to get the attention of the government. Now, ultimately, we all know how that panned out. And again, I'm not suggesting for one moment that this needs to be a union thing, because I think unions come with too much baggage. But some kind of workers' cooperative, and I know we've used the term cooperative in other ways in the past, a workers' cooperative where you just say, no, that's not acceptable. And even getting a gauge of what is acceptable. If you turn up at site, I can't even think of any good examples, but you turn up at site and I don't know, there's no toilet facility, or you've got no hot water, or you've got no access to whatever it might be. If you are, a seasoned professional and a veteran of the industry, you've probably been on a dozen, 20, 50, 100 sites. So you kind of know what the norm is. But there's a lot of people in this industry that don't know what the norm is. Wouldn't it be fantastic if there was a forum, a cooperative, call it what you will, where somebody could literally pick up the phone or go online and say, I've arrived at the site, and the boss is perfectly nice, and the guys I'm working with are fantastic and everything else, but I've got to walk 1.5 miles to have a pee. Is that right? At which point the forum would feedback, no, mate, that's not right at all. That's unacceptable. But we don't have that. I keep coming back to this word, surrender. There are some ruthless people in this industry, no question about it. And I'm sure there are some that push and push and push until they're told legally that they can't push anymore. But I don't think that's necessarily the majority. I think a lot of major contractors, a lot of smaller contractors are just going about their business, but they're doing it in the same way as everyone else. And I think we've allowed the ruthless to set the standard, to set the agenda, to the point where that has now become the norm. And bizarrely, close on 3 million people have just stood by and allowed that to happen. And I think one of the issues with this is the fact that it's an erosion. We didn't wake up one morning and find the goalpost moved and the playing field unlevel. I think there's been a gradual erosion, a gradual whittling away of workers' rights and care and duty of care. I think it's just been a slow erosion, and it's been so slow that I don't think we've noticed it actually happening until you wake up one day and you think, this isn't right. We're living in 2026 and people are still dying on site. People are still getting industrial diseases. People are still being exposed to asbestos and silica dust and Lord alone knows what else. People are being pushed to the absolute limit, and it's only now that it's so clear that we're actually starting to take notice. And again, I would go back to saying I'm not proposing unionisation because of the baggage. But when you think back, when I was part of a union, we would have union meetings about once a month or thereabouts, update you with negotiations with the management on sick pay, holiday pay, and various other bits and pieces. So for 3.5 weeks, you kind of didn't really take too much notice of a union. To be honest, I didn't attend all the meetings anyway, so I could go several months without really taking notice of what the union was doing on my behalf. But that was the 80s. That was the 1980s. You think about what we have now with the advent of the internet and global communications and instant communications, how quickly the industry could rally. And I was struck by this. I showed you yesterday. My wife found a copy of my book, A Sight for Sore Eyes, which I wrote very quickly. I'd been toying with the idea of doing kind of an anthology, pulling together a bunch of articles that I'd written and publishing them as a book. Didcot happened, and I thought, there's my opportunity. I'll do it with that in mind, and I will give all the profits to the families of the people that were killed. I spoke to Mark Coleman at Coleman & Company, who was doing the demolition at the time, and said, look, I don't want to be treading on your toes, but you okay? He said, yes. So about 2 days after Didcot happened, I announced the fact that I was doing it. Within about a week and a half, we'd got the book written and printed and everything else, and people were buying them in their hundreds. The industry rallied. Some of the biggest sales of those books were to the nearest rivals of Coleman & Company. They were Birmingham-based demolition contractors, not buying one or two. They bought 100. I had orders for 100 from America, from Italy, from Spain, from Germany. I mean, the Italians and the Germans probably couldn't even read what I was saying. Some of them could, I'm sure, but the industry as a whole rallied. They rallied behind a cause, and that cause was the fatal accident that killed 4 men. This industry kills more than that every single year. We're down to 25, apparently, for now. But why are we not taking those deaths, taking the deaths from asbestos, taking the deaths from silica dust, taking the deaths from suicide, and saying, when you put all of this together, this is too much. Something needs to change, and we are going to change it. As long as I'm paid, I don't care, is the attitude. And there will be a lot of that. And as I said about the striking miners and stuff, I don't suppose for one moment, and bearing in mind what I didn't necessarily agree with everything he said, but Arthur Scargill was certainly a great orator, a great speaker, a great leader of men. And I'm sure even he didn't get 100% of people on board, but he did enough to get enough people involved. Dan also says, guess what, Mark? I've spoken about this on my groups. Everyone has had their excuses not to do it. I did get some good responses, but not enough to get it out there. Again, I wonder if this is one of those things that requires a reason. If somebody is killed on a high-profile job, if multiple people, God forbid, but multiple people are killed, if there's another Didcot, if you could go back to the industry and say, it happened once, never mind the circumstances, never mind who's to blame or who was negligent or what or not, never mind the investigation, never mind the inaction of the Thames Valley Police, the Health and Safety Executive, the NFDC, never mind all of their inaction. What are we going to do? We saw 4 of our colleagues and our brothers in arms die in 2016. We've now seen more die in, this made-up accident that I'm talking about. We did nothing the first time around. We cannot do nothing the second time around. Maybe it needs that. Maybe it needs that trigger. Dan says, did you see the government has taken over British Steel? Yeah, apparently to safeguard British steel making. I think they've left it a bit too late because there's fuck all British steel making left to do. Still off the Christmas card, even now. I'm off more Christmas card lists than I'm on. I am. And I'm thick-skinned. I'm not bothered by that. But what does that tell you? And I'll stick to this subject. I mean, there are certain brands that refuse to have anything to do with me. You know, I don't get invited to their press conferences because I'm me. But the very fact that, you know, the so-called voice of the demolition industry in the UK will not speak to me. I mean, to be honest, I won't speak to them either. So I'm every bit as guilty. But I'm watching so hard now a lot of what's happening in US politics and US media. And Donald Trump has basically removed people from the White House, the people that ask difficult questions. You know, when he sat there bullshitting about reflecting pools and the war that he's run, the war that he's won in Iran 47 times this past fortnight, the people that call him on that, the people that say, hang on a minute, you said he's basically had their press passes revoked. That's this guy. I have exactly the same thing. Now, you know, I neither want nor need access to the NFDC or any of these organizations. But ask yourself this. Ask yourself why one of the last remaining journalists with the balls to actually ask questions that they don't want asked has been ostracized. Is that because they don't like my hat or my beard or my South London accent? Or is it because I make them feel uncomfortable? I think my beard looks good. I'm quite pleased with my hat. Can't do anything about the accent. I think I've been ostracized because I asked the question, or the questions, plural, that they are uncomfortable or entirely unwilling to answer. That's the absolute truth. Cowards. I've never made a Christmas card list with companies I worked for. No, I can believe it. And listen, this is something I say I've said to my kids. I think they've all grasped it now. You know, you don't go to work to make friends. It's fantastic if you can. You know, and let's face it, I ended up marrying one of my colleagues, and that worked out absolutely fine. But you don't go to work to make friends. You go to work to earn a crust to feed your family and yourself. That's what you do it for. But it goes back to what I was saying yesterday. One of the things that we've lost, I think, as an industry, is that bond of brotherhood. You know, brothers in arms, camaraderie, all for one and one for all. I think we've lost that, and I'll say again, I think we've surrendered it. I think we've allowed it to be eroded to the point where you look around now, and you're basically working. In many instances, you're working with 5, 6, 10, 20, 100 strangers for all intents and purposes. You know, you might know Bob at the gate, you might know Dave on the dumper, but by and large, they're not people you know. They've not got your back. You've probably not got theirs. You end up slightly adversarial, you know, rather than taking somebody to one side and saying, if you do that and I do that, we'll get this job done quicker. You go and do your thing, they do their thing, you shout at each other over a walkie-talkie, and then you go home at night. I think we've allowed that to be eroded. And I think that's the seed, really. You know, if a site can come together, and a company can come together, and 2 companies can come together, and 5 and 10 and 20 companies can come together, that's where you need, that's where you make the change. And I also wonder about this. And this is kind of where your world and my world meet. I like Earth Movers magazine. I don't read it all the time, but I like Earth Movers magazine. I like Awesome Earth Movers magazine. Don't read every issue, but I like it. There are other magazines out there, and who are they aimed at? As plant enthusiasts, I'm sure some of you have been to your local WH Smith's, or you've stopped in at a WH Smith's on your way to the train or something and seen a copy of Earth Movers and thought, oh, that's handy. I'll take that with me. I'll have a read of that. But all of these magazines, and I was equally guilty. I was on Plant Managers Journal. Who was that aimed at? Well, guess what? It was aimed at plant managers, not plant operators, not the guys actually doing the work, but the people that tell the people what to do at work. Nobody speaks to or for you. There is no magazine for you. Weird, right? Particularly when you think about how my part of the industry works. The way that people sell advertising in my sector is based, at least in part, upon size of circulation. So the fact that I've got 125,000 subscribers over on YouTube, 140,000 on Instagram and stuff, demolition-wise, I'm considered quite a big deal. When brands choose to work with us, they're doing so because they want access to my audience. They want to reach as many people as possible. And yet the media, the publishing world, remains intent on publishing magazines, not for an industry of 3 million, but for a collection of 2,000. I'm going to produce a magazine for the demolition industry, and I'm going to send it to all the MDs. Now, if you're Caterpillar, Komatsu, Hitachi, Volvo, and you're advertising those magazines, yes, the managing director or somebody close to the managing director will be the person that ultimately breaks out the checkbook and pays good money for one of your machines. I understand that. But if you want to talk about an untapped market, surely the 3 odd million people that toil in the dirt and in the mud and in the cold and in the rain, what a huge market. Even if a magazine was backed by people that made boots, hard hats, high-vis vests, flasks, whatever it might be, a magazine of that type that didn't go to managing directors, didn't go to site supervisors, it went to working men and women. And it talked about the things, like we do here every day, that talked about the things that bother them, that concern them, that worry them, that cause them sleepless nights. It's just a completely untapped market. And it just illustrates the bias in this industry. Everything is aimed at the top 1%. The top 1% of contractors, the top 1% of directors, the top 1% of buyers, and there's 99% sat below them that are given zero consideration. Exactly true. I do ask and point out things that's not right, but then told your last day's today. Yeah. One man cannot do this alone. And I don't mean me, I mean somebody like Dan. You can't do it alone. You need numbers. But those numbers are there. And for all the things that I've described about, your hands going numb, dust in your eyes, coughing up grit that you've been hailing for the last 10 years, I'm not doing that for journalistic effect. I haven't invented that. I've not made it up. It's not a work of fiction. It's something that is happening up and down the country, Scotland to Cornwall and all points in between, every single day. There are millions of people that are enduring exactly the same thing day in, day out. What they don't have is that thing to bring them together, whether that thing is a forum, a union, a magazine, a website, whatever it is. What it is lacking is just that. I mentioned my final point in that monologue was let people know that they're not standing alone. If the upper echelons of the industry have done one thing very, very well, I don't agree with it, but if they've done one thing very, very well, it is making working men and women believe that they do stand alone. And as it stands today, they probably do. But they don't have to. They could quite easily band together and make change. Think about this. There are ongoing consultations within the industry on, there's one going on at the moment over RIDDOR. And it's an open thing, they send out an open consultation. But a lot of the people that will respond to that will be either contractors or trade associations. When was the last time a contractor asked for your opinion? When was the last time a trade association asked for your opinion? So the future of RIDDOR, the future of health and safety legislation, the future of worker welfare, the future of mental health awareness, all of that is being dictated by people who don't actually have to endure it. It's being dictated way, way, way above your pay grade. You're suffering from it. You're the one with the dust in your lungs and possibly early stages of mesothelioma. You're the one with the bad back because of the working conditions. You're the one that's got, numb fingers through hand-arm vibration. You're the one who's struggling with your mental health because you're working away for prolonged periods. But the future of your industry is going to be decided by a collection of people who are sat there drinking coffee in an air-conditioned office in a suit. Does that seem right? I do wonder at times what you could do to get this sort of thing out there and to get noticed. As I say, this is where my skills let me down. I consider myself quite good at identifying and pointing out problems. I'm not particularly good at resolving them. And in this instance, I'm not the person to resolve them. If I were to go into bat, I'd imagine somebody at the NFDC was listening to this morning. They do. I know they do. But imagine someone was listening to this today and they said, do you know what? I've fucking had enough of this Mark Anthony bloke. Let's get him in. Let's have a chat with him. And I went along with a list, not mine, your grievances. There's this wrong, that wrong, and that wrong, and that wrong. You know full well that they would be sat there thinking, what does he fucking know? He's just a journalist. How dare he? I'm not the person to carry this fight forward. But you would think surely somewhere among 3 million UK demolition and construction workers, there must be somebody that is eloquent enough, knowledgeable enough, and bloody minded enough to stand up and say, lads, lasses, who's with me? Out of 3 million people, surely there is someone to stand up and say, enough. And it's not just me saying it, it's all these boys behind me and girls. Or have we been downtrodden for so long that kind of person has been completely eradicated? I'm going to say good morning to my old mate, Wolfie. Good morning, Wolfie. How are you doing, my friend? Good to hear from you. Good to see you as well. That's one of the joys of doing prolonged shows. You see, big time difference between here and the States. But if I ramble on for an hour and 14 minutes, which I've done today, he gets a chance to tune in. Yeah, and all is right with the world. People. You've heard what I've got to say. I hand it to you. Do with that what you will. if someone were to want to make a change and want it publicised, I'd be happy to do it for them, with them, alongside them, whatever it might be. But this is not my fight. It's your fight. And whether you choose to fight or not is entirely down to you and your circumstances. I hope someone does, though. Anyway, people, go and have a fantastic day, would you? Look after yourselves, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I'll see you again tomorrow. Yeah, that's me done. Have a good day, everyone. See ya.